I was a judge for 17 years here in Duluth. Known, I guess, for kind of innovation. I started a DWI court, Safe Babies Court, Domestic Violence Court, some screening and brief intervention for first-time DWI offenders, all around the idea that maybe it makes sense to try and fix the issues that bring you here. And if we can help fix the issues that bring you here, maybe you won't come back. Every day, literally every day, I have encounters with folks in the community who are better because they went through our courts. And that's our courts writ large: treatment courts, mental health court, drug court, DWI court. It's an idea that I have that justice should be restorative and not just punitive. We've seen people revolve through prison cycles back and forth forever, and everybody wonders why it didn't work. Well, you threw somebody in a cage with other predators, and how would you respond if you were in a cage with predators? You'd try and figure out how to be a predator. January 8th, I retired, and January 11th, I took the weekend off and then came in to do this president thing at the Community Foundation. We are massive. We are in 7 counties in Minnesota and 3 counties in Wisconsin. We have 460 funds almost, doing all kinds of different things. So it's been fascinating to learn. I tell people the first months, I felt like I needed more naps to try to learn. You know, we learn when we sleep. That's when our brain shuttles stuff from the working memory into the actual usable memory. And I needed naps, but it's been fun to learn. I do a lot of speaking. I tell people I got a big mouth. I just seem to always have something to say. If you're a Clifton Strengths person, I'm a futurist, achiever, command, activator, maximizer. Some people say that means I'm a pain in the butt, I guess, but we'll see. Here's me. Koresh talked about it a little bit. 14 years ago, I decided gas hit $3 a gallon, and I decided to ride my bike to work. And riding, I live on 27th West, kind of on the top of 12th. And riding to work wasn't too bad. Riding home was terrible. I rode uphill. I climb about 500 or 600 feet uphill. I was going up 3rd and wanted to quit, but there were people standing in the yard and I couldn't quit in front of people. So I kept riding. And it took about 2 weeks before I felt like I could survive the ride. 5 or 6 weeks later, I figured out I was a better dad when I rode my bike, on days I rode my bike. Come to find out from neurobiology and understanding that exercise helps bleed off the trauma and stress of being a judge, or insert whatever trauma and stress anybody else is dealing with. That bike in and bike home has become, I don't know who I would be without that daily back and forth. I'm outside, I'm exercising, I'm burning off stress going home. I had a guy almost hit me Thursday night, came right by me, had all the lanes and could have taken me out just like that. But I haven't been hit yet. So I tell everybody, if I go down on 2 wheels, know that I was happy when I was doing it. And then what I did was, as winter came, I decided, I've always been a winter guy. I thought, I think I can keep doing this. So I didn't quit. And you see the picture there. The coldest day I've ever ridden is 28 below with a 54 below wind chill. I claimed close to 32 below one day, but I was sick as a dog and didn't go to work. So that was my miss. But I don't know if I'll do better than that or not, but it's just who I am. The other thing, Rahm Emanuel's Never Waste a Crisis, I decided during COVID to learn something. And so I learned how to take pictures. These are all my pictures that you'll see. And if you see behind me on the wall, actually, those are my pictures too. I make them into metal and frame them, or metal, put them on metal and put them up on the wall. It's been pretty cool. Kathy mentioned And Sally knows about this too. My youngest and I, she's a senior at Denfeld this year. We went on a trip in June. We paddled the whole Boundary Waters from west to east, the Border Lake route. We took 13 days and paddled 220 some miles. And it was a fabulous trip. Great time with my daughter, who is like me, so we kind of butt heads. So it's been cool to, it was really cool to spend 2 weeks out in the wilderness together. I was worried that 13 days was too long, and now I realize 13 days is too short. So I'm trying to figure that out, and how to get out there longer. But we had a great trip. About 16 years ago, I bumped into a gentleman named Don Coyhus. He's a Mohican elder, and he founded a movement in Indian country called Wellbriety. And he told this metaphor, told this parable, and I asked him afterwards, I talked to him at length. I'm like, dude, can I share that story? He's like, share it wherever you want. And this has become the defining metaphor for my life. 3 sisters show up to a river, and there are babies in the water drowning. And the first sister jumps in and starts pulling kids out and is saving kids, but still overwhelmed. Second sister looks and thinks, you know, if I could teach kids to swim, then they could be helpers too, so we could work together with more effect. And so the second sister jumps in and does that. And between first sister and second sister, they are having an effect. They're saving some kids, but they're still woefully failing. They look at the third sister who's standing on the shore and say, get in, get in. How can you just stand there? And she looks and she runs away. Where was she running? Nobody's going to answer, are they, Kathy?
Okay, upriver, upriver.
Upriver. Figure out who's putting babies in the water in the first dang place, right? Right? And for me, being a judge, I felt like we were doing first sister all day long. Carnage and hardship and heartache and breaking. And we were trying to at least walk that through in a thoughtful manner, and where we could, bring some healing, bring some safety, bring some treatment, bring some help, bring some connection. First sister. Second sister, one of my courts was a national model. I traveled over, being all over the country and even a little bit over the world, being able to teach people how to do thoughtful judicial intervention. But when, Koresh is right, when I was having beers with Dan Liu, he talked about this huge organization that's trying to make a difference. I thought, that sounds like third sister work. That sounds like folks who are doing the first sister and the second sister, for sure, will always have that. But maybe there's some third sister work too, where we can change the outcomes for boys and girls down the line so that they aren't in the water in the first place. That's become the defining metaphor for how I think about life. If I'm working, if I'm moving, if I'm engaged in community, I want to be thinking about all 3. I want to change the outcomes. How many of you have heard of the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences? Anybody heard of it? I knew Kathy would. Kathy's probably talked. The Andersons have heard about it. Kathy, when did you first hear of ACEs?
Boy, I think at least 15 years ago, probably.
Yeah, it's a study out of Kaiser Permanente. It's been going, what, like 30 years, I think. They originally started studying their health pool, so their employees and people in their health insurance, asking questions around what are the downstream impacts of experiencing trauma as a child. And they've come up with, as you can see, there are 10 categories. And you can go online and take an ACEs test, and it's easy done. And these categories by no means cover all types of trauma that we humans can experience, but they're a category and a grouping that helps a ton. They are in 3 different areas: abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. Abuse includes physical, emotional, and sexual. Neglect is either includes physical or emotional. And then household dysfunction, somebody, a mentally ill family member, a relative incarcerated, typically mom or dad or caretaker, mother treated violently, substance abuse in the home, and divorce, broken relationships. And they started just asking their employees to fill out these surveys and see what they had, with an idea towards tracking downstream outcomes. This is what they found. They found that adverse childhood experiences at the base disrupt neurodevelopment, which leads to social, emotional, cognitive impairment, often leads to high-risk behavior, then leads to disease, disability, and social problems, and then early death. If you take this score and you get 4 or higher, you got real statistical trouble. Does everybody follow the same pattern? No. These are correlative. Folks do well with, I've worked with a bunch of folks with 8, 9, 10 ACEs. It's not a death sentence, it's not a determiner, but it's a factor. And if you don't have a resilience to handle your trauma, then you have ongoing trouble. Significantly increased risk for adult causes of death: heart disease, stroke, cancer, COPD, diabetes, Alzheimer's, suicide. Kids with multiple ACEs are 20 times more likely to be homeless as an adult. 80% probability of developmental delays, 20 years off the average lifespan, 4 or higher. Significant impacts. And we've all known this, right? We've kind of known that if you grow up in a hard, ugly place, there are consequences. This started for me, it started in thinking about what do you got to do to get upstream, but it certainly was prevalent in all my work. I mean, the axiom that hurt people just roared through everything we did. You didn't have to dig very hard to find hurt people hurting other people in one way or another. And so the work became, for me, about trying to build trauma-informed work in our courtroom and in everything we do, so that we can help folks find healing and find safety and find movement in a positive direction as opposed to being stuck. Does that make sense? If you, Kathy's posted the ACEs, you can also look at, you can Google resilience and ACEs, and there's tons of great thinking about what helps people through. You don't just give up because somebody's got 4 ACEs or 5 ACEs. You try to figure out how to connect. There's a famous researcher and clinician out of Texas named Bruce Perry, and he says, he's called the father of neuroplasticity in some circuits. He's proven that teenage brains can regenerate and neurology can connect and pathways can fire. 30 years ago, we didn't believe that at all. We thought you got to be 14, 15, 16, nothing you can do. He's proven that wrong and proven success. But he says, no matter how much money you throw at this, and Bruce Perry throws a lot of smart money at this, don't hear it wrong. The thing that matters is quality relationship with quality people, coaches, aunties. Steve, the ACEs 101 book, I would look at The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Kathy, can you grab that and throw it in? Fantastic book about trauma and impacts, but then also about what we can do about it and the things that are happening across the world in terms of helping folks move through and find safety and healing in trauma. Bessel says, if you're not safe, you don't grow. So everything we did was around safety, dignity, respect, transparency, choice, voice, giving people places of safety where they could then process and work and grow. Yeah. You find that, Kathy? Have you read it? Is that you got a book you'd recommend?
I do not. I'm retired. I can't remember any books, but thanks for asking.
I put you on the spot. That's awesome. Stephen Porges' work on is kind of grounding and foundational to Van der Kolk's stuff, Porges, but go right to Van der Kolk. He's got great stuff. There's really, really solid stuff out there and really exciting things that people are doing to make a difference. And this isn't new stuff. All right, here's the throw out. Anybody know who this is on the screen? Who is that guy?
Edgar Allen Poe?
Yes, Mr. Bongi gets it. It's Edgar Allan Poe. We all think that the world went to hell on whatever, you pick your time, when the iPhone was invented, when MTV came on, when they made TV, when they made radio. Here's what Edgar had to say. I have absolutely no pleasure in the stimulants which I sometimes so madly indulge. It has not been in the pursuit of pleasure that I've periled life and reputation and reason. It has been the desperate attempt to escape from torturing memories, from a sense of insupportable loneliness and a dread of some strange impending doom. They found Edgar dead. What was he, early 30s, beat up, wearing somebody else's clothes, substances on board. Edgar and his little brother were found with their mom's body in their tenement housing when they were both less than 5. She died of tuberculosis. This is not a new problem, brothers and sisters. This is not just a modern problem, not by any means. Good. Mr. Bongi gets 50 points for the Edgar Allan Poe connection. That's awesome. We've got a fund here Chris knows about. We just spent hours talking about it Wednesday, called Opportunity Rising. And on the wall out here, it says this, to forge a path to real, meaningful, and abundant opportunities for every child in Duluth and Superior. And I'd add, and beyond. I think that's third sister work. And when I think about that work, I think about adverse childhood experiences and what we can do to stop trauma in our culture and bring resilient points, reconnection of social fabric and social network in a time when we desperately need it to help little ones move through, right?
Shaun, we did have a question came up from Steve
good.
Robinson. What would be the ACEs 101 book?
I answered that, Kathy.
All
Russell
right.
Van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score.
That's what I thought, but I was just checking.
We got it. That's, to me, Bessel's the guy. And then if you Google ACEs, you find a bunch of stuff. As I said, there's a lot of people doing really thoughtful work on, you can admire the problem for too dang long, right? We are a culture that can often admire the problem, and because it's complex, Mo Udall used to say, for every complex problem, there's a simple answer, and it's always wrong. Complex problems require complex answer, complex work. You don't solve traffic safety by a single bumper sticker saying watch for motorcycles. You do hundreds of things to try to protect one another on a traffic safety basis. But there's a ton of people doing really beautiful stuff on what it is to be resilient, both individually and family and connected, right? Connected culture. This is us, real meaningful and abundant opportunities for every child in Duluth and Superior. There's work on our website. If you Google Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.com, maybe Kathy can throw the website in while you're a good co-pilot here, Kathy. I love it. This is work by a professor named Molly Harney up at UMD, and Molly is my superhero. I just love the work that she's doing. She put this study out. It came out in November last year. It's fresh. It's super strong stuff. It also, Mr. Robinson, is a great deep dive into ACEs. The first half of her report explains ACEs, and this is hung on our website too. So you can find it right there. The first half kind of walks through ACEs and history and understanding. And then the second half walks through the central hillside of Duluth, our backyard, and talks about ACEs and the impacts. And then she lays out plans for how we can get after this. It's super strong research and writing and work. She identified there 1,300 people, 600 of them children in the hillside. 53% of adults reported 4 or more ACEs. So 53%, and you know, well, you can guess, folks underreport. I met a lot of people with 9 ACEs. Nobody wants to talk about number 10. So you're going to have underreport, but over half of the adults reported 4 or more. So all of them are subject to those risks I talked about, those downstream risks, early death, suicide, homelessness, etc. Right? And if you're raising kids, when you have that level of ACEs on board, and when you're in poverty and in tough situations, guess what the kids are looking at? Higher ACEs, right? It's a fantastic study. It'd be a great thing to look to for ACEs too. So I amend my answer. Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, and Molly's work, Adversity and Hope. It's on our website. I'll also give you my email if you need help getting to connect to that stuff. Molly's done work in the Steve O'Neill apartments with a group called the First Ladies of the Hillside. We invited them in, and this is also on our website. We've got a whole piece on First Ladies. Renee Pasalt has done a ton of work kind of following their journey. This is their artwork. It's all through our office. If you want to come down and do a tour sometime, let me know. I'd love to show it to you. But they, what Molly did was ask for a little bit of money from us to support mental health, parent coaching, childcare, jobs training. Childcare, by the way, is one of the biggest needs that's coming our way again and again and again and again. And it's quality, non-traditionally timed childcare. You need childcare to go to school. You need childcare to go to work the night shift at one of the hotels or up the shore. We had Silver Bay businesses come to us and say, hey, could you put together some grant funding for the school so we can do quality childcare for people so they can work other than 9 to 5? Huge needs. That took a bit of a shift when COVID hit, because come to find out Steve O'Neill wasn't built with internet and they needed internet. Otherwise you're in the Stone Ages, right? So we switched the money a little bit to give them some internet access. It has morphed into this beautiful group of women. If you can Google First Ladies of the Hillside, Kathy will, and share it out in a moment. They've got their own website. They're working with entrepreneur folks up at UMD, trying to figure out how to do education and supportable entrepreneur-based income. They're doing coffee giveaways every 2 weeks at the Damiano. They did a back to school drive where they gathered backpacks and stuff for kids, gave it out. They went to COVID centers and started helping people sign up for vaccination and giving out gifts, some art stuff and some homemade stuff. What I love thinking about, I think some of philanthropy in the past has focused on, oh, these beautiful, generous people who are giving to these poor, under whatever, these, you know, kind of the one direction of giving. When you watch the videos, there's 4 of them on our site. When you watch them, you realize that everybody brings something. And we were able, through a little bit of money, to pull out some of the barriers and hook up some of the disconnects or some of the lacks. And then we get to watch these fantastic women thrive in our community, really, really thrive. It's really encouraging to see the human spirit flying forward when a couple of barriers are removed and a couple of connections are made. And it all started with getting a hold of a local internet computer guy who could retro equip Steve O'Neill with a little bit of internet at the start of COVID so they could connect. Let me see where I'm going. I talked about that. These are our visions, right? These are what we see all day long, right? You can throw anything in there. Sometimes I throw in pictures of the boundary waters burning. My daughter and I came upon the Curtin Falls fire 2 days after it happened. All of us could have put it out with water bottles probably. And then it's still burning. It felt like the whole summer, the whole world was burning, either literally or figuratively, right? And I think we get down to, you have choices. Are you going to be part of the solution or part of the problem? Margaret Mead says, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that has. But the cautionary tale in that is walking into that January 6th at the Capitol was a strong group of Proud Boys, right-wing, anti, loaded for bear guns. They are organized. They are a small group of committed citizens. Margaret Mead didn't say that good people win. Margaret Mead said the way you change the world is a small group of committed citizens, and there are small groups of committed citizens on all kind of sides of the spectrum. So if we're not out there in our own way, don't be surprised when somebody else carries the day, right? Here's a quick art project. This is one of my side hustles. I'm involved in the Duluth Street Art initiative. We came out a couple of weeks ago and painted the whole alley behind North Shore Bank, Dublin's Men as Peacemakers. It's the right up from Superior, it's the 100 West block, with the idea that public art can make spaces for people, and it can bring renewal in the face of tough times. We're going to do more and more and more. We'll probably paint the whole thing. We might paint the silos at some point, but it's back to never waste a crisis. And are you going to be out there or are you not in your own way? This is us. This is our view. I've talked long on ACEs and communities, so I don't have a long talk on the community foundation, but our areas of focus tend to come in 4 big pots, I would say. Kids, economic development, often through arts. We have a lot of arts funding. I'm a big believer in arts and what can happen with jobs and connection and people coming together around arts. Equity and justice. And then we have a huge amount of work we do in the emergency response area. Kind of started, not maybe got big after the flood, and it was set and ready to go with COVID. So we've done a lot of COVID work. Happy to answer questions on any of that. That's Margaret Mead, right? Here's Coretta Scott King. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. That's my PowerPoint.